Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Flow with Robin Wilt and Jessica Kay. And today we are talking about animal inspiration. So we decided to start off with pulling an animal oracle card. And this is one of my favorite ways to get inspiration. I'm going to be using the Pocket Spirit Pocket Animal Spirit Guidebook. So this is by the Wild Unknown Pocket Deck, and they're this cute little tiny deck of cards. So let's see what Spirit has for us today on this podcast. We come up with the hyena.
Ooh.
I know, look at that. He's wild looking. So let's see what they have to say about the hyena. So I'm sure that everybody has an idea of what the different animals mean to them. And I always recommend for you to work with your intuition. But I also like to look and see what inspiration they have in the deck, in their little book that comes with the deck. So give me just a minute. Let's see if I can find hyena.
Yeah, don't be hating on hyenas because, that famous movie back in the day.
I know, right? The Lion King. Well, that's the
Yeah.
other thing I love about these animal decks. Like, there is no moment in my daytime, like, there's no moment where I'm going to see a hyena, like, out
Yeah.
in nature, unless I see it on TV, which that's also another great inspiration. If I see like an animal and it really sticks out to me on TV, I'm like, let me look that up.
Yeah.
So, hyena is about humor, wit, and sarcasm. It's a
Mm.
jokester and crowd pleaser. But below the surface, there are unfulfilled dreams to be realized. So when the hyena card appears, it's time to reflect on your reliance on sarcasm and humor to express your truth.
Mm.
Are you using jokes to hide old resentments in relationships or to mask things that you feel uncomfortable discussing? What would happen if you took your goals seriously? So when you're in balance, hyenas are charming, witty, and fun to be around. And when you are out of balance, they can be scrappy, petty, and suspicious. So sobriety is one way to bring it into balance. So that's
It's very
fun.
interesting.
It is.
Yeah. So Jessica and I were chatting a little bit about what we use animals for. Like animals have been such a large part on my journey. And honestly, I don't even know when I started to notice. I mean, I think I've always loved animals to an extent, but like I really, really love them now. And they give me so much strength and so much, I don't know, I just feel like such beauty whenever I am able to encounter an animal. And I get so many different messages from my angels from animals that, I just started to notice like weird things that I would have happen in front of me. And I'm like, okay, this is, like I just started to pay attention. So have you always had like a resonance towards animals, or did you notice it at some point along your journey?
I've always had a level of resonance with animals. I've always been fascinated by them. Even as a kid, I had a pet squirrel for a while. Like, so I've always kind of been in tune in this strange way with things that, you wouldn't think, like having a pet squirrel and loving it like a child. Like when my mom let that pet squirrel free when I was a kid, oh my God, it was like the saddest day of my life. So
No.
yes, I've always felt like deeply bonded with the environment around me, like nature, and then
Mm.
animals as just an extension of that. And for me, like I I seek out like being in places. I have a path that I walk near my house and I love to see the birds. I like to go out of in my backyard and hear and listen to the birds. And I'll even go on rides. Gainesville is very like nature and woody. So you can drive through neighborhoods and there's deer and there's foxes and there's owls. So it's just really fascinating for me. I feel like a divine connection, like God is talking to me when I
Mm.
have these close encounters with animals. I mean, I've even like saved a alligator snapping turtle, like walked it across the road.
Oh,
So yeah, I've had some
yeah.
pretty amazing encounters with animals. For me, it's really telling when I'm not seeing them. Like I usually hear birds and stuff, but when I don't see animals,
Mhm.
usually I've gotten too busy. I'm feeling out of the flow.
Mhm.
And when I'm in particularly like challenging times, like it doesn't have to be like overwhelmingly challenge, but like even right now, I'm thinking like, I want to see an animal. Like, universe, show me an animal, bring an animal to me. And that's just like amazing because then all of a sudden it shows up, and then you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that was my present. I'm being heard." So that's really how I like to use animals. I will say, whenever you make an intention to work with animals, they show up even more. And last year with the Gene Keys, they have this aspect called the dream arc. And it's kind of it's entwined, but it's also separate. Like you can do the Gene Keys and never do the dream arc. Or you can do same thing. You can do the Gene Keys and never do the dream arc, and you can do the dream arc, never do the Gene Keys. And when I did that retreat, it was like they have animals in different categories and they, encourage you to have a ritual, and even certain animals represent rituals.
Mm.
And they started showing up like crazy. I had a pileated woodpecker just come and land right in front of my car. Like, "Hey, I'm here. I want to be your portal creature." So that's one of the main things because it's so visceral too. Like sometimes it's like, I'm talking to my angels, but am I really like, we question, like, I can't see them.
Yeah.
And so, and I do talk to the angels and I do feel like I'm communicating with them, but like sometimes when we aren't having that material representation, I question. And with the animals, like, and sometimes when I even have those questions, it's like, whoop, something lands near me or walks in front of me. It's like, we are here and we are
Mhm.
interacting with you. The universe is in sync with us. So that's why I love nature and animals so much, because it is like a connection to the divine and it's so physical. You cannot
Mhm.
deny it. And that really helps me accept my gifts and my what I was hearing and bringing through even more so, because beings would show up to support
Yeah.
some of the messages that I was getting. And that's the other thing, is like if I'm not listening, like an animal will show up, I'll look up and it's like, "Oh yeah, that's what I've been hearing all along and I didn't trust
Yeah.
it." So it's like they help you trust your intuition and what your guides and angels are telling you. That's
Yeah.
why I love them so much.
It's funny because I like behind my house. So Jessica and I are both in Florida. Behind my house is a lot of woods, and I have a dog. So sometimes, like, she'll start barking, and that's how I'll notice some animals behind my house. Like, I'll get storks and I'll get all kinds of like really cool stuff. But I love it when I'm in sessions with people because animal messengers will show up, and I'll get, just again, like I'm trying to like storks and blue herons and like just things that I don't usually have back there. So I love seeing like raccoons walk by or cats. It's really cool. Like I really do get kind of a mix of things. But one of the things that I have started to play around in my own life and as well, as working with clients, is like bringing in animal energy. So right, if there's some pretty obvious ones that I think most of us tend to think about, right? Like a lion can be around courage. What are like owls or wisdom. There's some pretty basic ones I think that most of us know. So if you're working on something in your life, you can also request for that animal to come help you. Lizards are great for dreams. So right, like dream recall, or also if you're working on bringing your dreams to fruition in your life, through your goals or through your business or whatever it is in life that you're trying to bring forward. So they're also there for us to utilize the vibration and the energy of. So, like Jessica was saying, like we can just call on them, like, "Hey, Lion, I know that I'm going to be doing this presentation this week. Like, I'm drawing on your strength, I'm drawing on your courage, and like the ability to speak and to have that confidence." So I think they're a really beautiful gift. And as you were sharing, like if you're open to play, we could do just a quick meditation and see what other animal wants to come through for us. I know we already drew hyena, but I like to play sometimes. Yeah, you want to?
Yeah.
All right. So just taking a few deep breaths, getting nice and centered into this space if you haven't already. Just get fully connected with Mother Earth. So as you create that connection, we're just going to ask that everything that we don't need, we're going to ask that that be released through the exhale down to Mother Earth. We're just creating some space, creating that attunement with our angels and our guides. So I love doing this because, right, a lot of times when animals come forward, we're like, really? Like we'll get beavers or we'll get like really random, animals, like you said, hyena. We had that come up. So it's like things that we're not really expecting. So just allow whatever comes to that wants to come through, like trying not to have that attachment or that expectation about what it's going to look like. So taking a few more deep breaths. And then just thinking about what it is that you're working on in your life right now. What would you like to create? What would you like to shift or grow into? All right, not overthinking, just kind of quickly allowing that to drop in. And then we're going to ask the the animals, the insects, the water creatures, wherever the being is coming from, just asking for the one that can assist us with that goal that we have right now. Allowing that to drop in. And then just allowing that animal, that insect, the water creature, whatever it is, allowing that vibration to soak into your energy field. All right. So it's almost like we're drawing on that energy, we're calling it into ourselves. So asking you for support as we move forward into this thing that we're working on, this thing that we're creating, this thing that we're healing, whatever it is. Feeling that vibration. All right. And just giving thanks to the earth and to our animal friends, giving thanks to the energy that's surrounding us right now, giving thanks to yourself for taking this moment and dropping in. And just knowing that you can do this whenever you need to. If there's something you're working on, right, you can pull an animal card, you can ask, what animal can assist me right now. Um, Apparently, I need to ask some animals for some throat assistance, which actually we were talking about the astrology right now is like a lot of throat energy. I'm going to jot down my animal because I want to work with him a little bit some more. I got octopus. What did you get, Jessica? Do you want to share?
Yeah, so I got a couple because that's who I am. It's interesting. When I started the dream arc, we had to choose different animals, and one of them that came up was the whale. And it was right at the same time as one of the Star Wars series that had
Mm-hmm.
these cosmic whales.
Oh.
And that is right around the time where I went into galactic astrology. So
Mm.
it really was like really profound. And when it came to me again, it was like, the whale energy for me is this old wise being that's been here before we were here. It's aware of everything, but it also, has this interdimensional quality. And so it was just that synchronicity, like reminding me of all those synchronicities.
Mm.
And even in the Star Wars episode, like they went inside the whale and the whale took them places. So it's
Mm.
like allowing the whale to take me places and teach me and show me, like passing on this really amazing wisdom. So that happened. And then I transitioned into a cocoon. So I have a whole batch of milkweeds in my front yard. And every year, probably for the last 7, 8, 9 years, I cultivate, not cultivate, but I have these milkweed and I have monarchs and they come and they lay eggs and they, turn into caterpillars and they eat everything. And then they turn into, the chrysalis and then they fly around. So I have a very kind of consistent relationship with different caterpillars and butterflies. Like I have all kinds of butterflies around me. Even the other day, I went out and took pictures of nature, and there were little caterpillars. Like you couldn't see
Mhm.
them, but when I got real close and took a picture, I'm like, "There's little baby caterpillars all over this." So it's just for me, like I have that constant cycle, as part of my yearly reality, and it reminded me that I'm in the cocoon. So even though I am doing a lot of stuff, I'm very fire energy. Like I am still in the gathering information and growing, and that
Yeah.
it's okay to be in that cocoon and to not know what I'm going to do next, but to just kind of fold in on myself and allow myself to transform and transmute and heal and be held. And that when the time is ready, then I'll come out. But
Mm.
just to be very patient with my own cycles around gathering knowledge and healing and then moving forward. So for me, like that's where it's like I'll get a multiple animals and then I'm like, okay, what does this mean? Like
Mhm.
I can look it up in a book, but it's like, what are you trying to tell me? So like that's where I always
Yeah.
ask, like, give me more information. Like you showed me the whales. So what about this whale energy am I working with right now? And
Hmm.
then what else is going on? Then like so that's where like when you were walking us through that visualization, I had this whole story about here's your animals and here's why they're working with you,
Hmm.
reminding me of where I'm at right now and what is there to help me. So
Yeah.
just like this beautiful story to feel supported by where I'm at through the animals.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like that's why I want to go back to mine later on. Because don't you feel like when you're holding space, like for me, sometimes I'm not fully able to drop in, to like what my
Mm-hmm.
specific message is. So I had a little bit of that. I was like, all right, I'm gonna feel into this later. But octopus just initially, I can definitely be a person that has a lot going on. Um, which is weird. Like it can almost be better for me to have that because my brain can be so active, that if I don't have anything, I feel like, it it can create, like then my mind wants to create things or like give me something to focus on. So yeah, I get to tune into octopus. And I do feel like with the seasons getting ready to change into springtime that energy is going to be shifting a bit for me, especially with the eclipses. It's
Yes.
also interesting to notice, just like nature, just like the animals, like how our cycles change. Like you were talking about the butterflies and the caterpillars. I think it's something we're not in tune with as much anymore because we live in a much different society than we did back in the day. But especially if you live in a place like Florida or Hawaii and like, there's not the drastic seasons. Like we can forget that winter time, which we're still technically in, it is a time to kind of be in cocoon. It's a time to allow those old things and those old energies to kind of die away. So, continuing to be patient with ourselves and to honor those, right? And if you're on the other side of the equator, you're opposite, right? Yeah. Which always amazes me. So what would that be right now? Would that be fall?
Winter, no, I think it would be summer, summer, winter.
Summer. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they're just getting
Sorry.
ready to come into fall. You're,
Okay. My brain was thinking spring to fall. Yeah. Right with that. Yeah.
yep, spring.
Um,
Mhm.
I mean, because to me, I'm thankful like it's almost springtime, but technically we are, right? We only have a couple more days. We're on like the 23rd. Is that the
19th this year. The equinox is on the 19th. Yay. So that's the thing, like you're mentioning this and my birthday's coming up. So I naturally follow the sun cycle, which is great.
Mm.
But we've got the equinox on the 19th. We've got the lunar eclipse 24th, 25th of March. We've got April 8th is the solar eclipse. Like, it's going to be very powerful over the next coming weeks. So I can feel myself. And, even that April 8th solar eclipse is in the sign of Aries. Like, there's so much fire. But as we were looking at it, there's a lot of challenging aspects. So it's like that fire is kind of pushing us to go in and see where we need to heal. While also there's a lot of Piscean energy flowing around, which muddies the water. So there's a lot going on with all of that. And we can definitely talk about that more. But for me, it's like that reminder to go in, to cocoon. Like, yes, as much as we're wanting to move forward now, the astrology is pushing us deeper in to look at these changes and what's working and what's not working inside of us and outside of us, and then being able to move through that gracefully, like, okay, I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't want this. I don't want this. But it doesn't have to be a thing. It can just be like, okay, I don't resonate anymore. And we just keep, what do we resonate? And just allowing those things to fall away.
Yeah, it's funny because we were chatting about, we always have like a conversation beforehand just to kind of see where the energy's taking us. And I think, like I was sharing with Jessica some things around relationships, which, it makes sense because of the energy that we're seeing coming up. So the eclipses are usually in the same sign that the nodes are in, right? So right now the nodes are in Aries and Libra. So it is a lot around relationships. So if you find yourself like, kind of reevaluating your relationships, or just kind of understanding more about what it is that you desire, right? We change as human beings. So what I desired 5 years ago in relationships is going to be different than what I desire now. It's like allowing yourself to just honor that and acknowledge it and become aware of it, I think is also like really powerful. And right, to use the what we were sharing with you about the animals, like the animals can be such a huge source of assistance as we're moving through these chapters and these energies. Yeah, so just remember that you have all the tools if things get a little bit challenging. Yeah. Sorry, my dog just farted and I was like, Allie usually helps out with stuff too. Allie's not over here. She's laying next to me, but yeah, her butt is facing me. So she wanted to remind us that we can use animal farts for our work somehow too.
what are we letting go of? The stinkier, the better. Let it flow. Well, and it's interesting too, you mentioned, with the eclipses, with the nodes, that lunar eclipse in Libra, where are we finding that balance in our emotions? What are we letting go of? Really looking at that, eclipses are a great opportunity for pivoting and to let go and transformation. It's like we get to see things differently than how they normally are. And when you get to see it, like, shed some light on it, we're shedding light on something different. So what is coming forward and how can we find balance with that? And that's going to be around our emotions. And then we go to the Aries, the sun, which is being blocked off. So where in that darkness, what needs to be shifted? Where do we need to push that fire energy and move that? So these are great opportunities to be supported by the energies to make these shifts as we move forward throughout the year. And the eclipse seasons are connected. So we had an eclipse season in October. So it's like, what has happened between October to now? It's a continuation. So what still needs to be shifted? How can these energies move us forward through to the next eclipse season? And just, diving into this and allowing it to like pivot, like, oh, okay, like leaning into a turn. That's what we're kind of doing energetically, is like, how can we lean into this and get the most out of this? And, we are all ascending. It's where I was thinking the other day, I'm like, I want to start out saying like, hello, ascending beings, because we are all ascending. And it's like, okay, well, we're all ascending and it can look however it looks. It can be easy, it can be hard, it can be in between. But when we really like lean into these energies, they can just like, whoop, they can move us exponentially. And I've noticed I have been leaning into the energies a little bit more. So like even like now I'm in this like weird like Pisces. There's also a little you know, Capricorn, a little stuckness there, but it's not really affecting me. I'm just aware of it. And I'm like, okay, let's pull in a little bit more to shift this. In the past, I'd be like, what's happening? I don't have clarity. Like,
Mhm.
but it allows us to be a little bit more easy with what we're experiencing with ourselves. And I also have this, strong trust that I am being guided by my angels and by my guides and that I am connected. So I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So it doesn't scare me. It
Mhm.
doesn't scare me. So that's where I say the benefit of this is allowing us to just be in the flow a little bit more so that when these hard aspects, I looked at my transit stay and like 8 or 9 squares, like it is all like it is jammed up. The energy is jammed up. I'm like, okay, well, that explains why I'm feeling a little like
Mhm.
uncertain or a little stuck, but okay, that's exactly where we are. We're a little jammed
Mhm.
up. So I'm gonna honor that and go have some fun, go play in my yard a little bit, do a, meditation. Like, how do I bring some flow into all of these squares and make it a little bit easier?
Which actually I love that you're talking about that because isn't it funny? Like I feel like when we do readings, I'll speak for myself, right? I'm curious if Jessica agrees, but typically people want to see the good things. They're like, oh yeah, but do I get along with this person? If you're looking at synastry, if you're looking at their chart, they're like, tell me all the good stuff. They don't want to look at the squares. They don't want to look at the challenging aspects. But right, that's where a lot of the beauty and the growth comes from is like, when the square is happening, it's creating that friction, it's creating that challenge because that's how we learn, that's how we grow. If we were just happy all the time and everything was going great, we probably wouldn't have as much growth or as much, opportunity to kind of ascend and to become wiser, more expansive beings. So as challenging as it can be, excuse me, the squares are actually they're happening for you. So again, ways that you can mitigate that is that you can use your tools, right? Use your spiritual tools, use the animals, use movement. Movement can be really profound if you think about like squares, kind of creating that friction. No, that wouldn't be a square, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
um,
no, it makes sense.
you can use the movement to kind of, all right, universe, I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling challenged, I'm feeling aggravated. Like last week I was feeling really frustrated about something. So I threw on a hit exercise online, grabbed my weights, and I was like just going to town with it. And I was imagining like breaking up all of that energy that I was feeling frustrated over. So there's different ways that you can move through these energies and not feel so kind of like bound up and so like you're at the whim of the astrology gods that are kind of happening. I mean, do you have that typically where people want to know about all the good things and they just want to look at all the positive aspects?
Yeah. Well, and I'll get into that, but I want to address one thing you just said because it's so important, like the intention. So, yes, if you go and have movements, that's great. But if you engage in that movement with the intention of I am feeling stuck, and my intention in engaging in this movement is to move through that. Like we talked about intention before, and that's so important. That's where it's like you take the mundane and you make it sacred. So yes, going and working out can just be going and working out. Taking a shower can be just taking a shower. But I won't lie, there's sometimes where I'm like, oh, I feel like it feels thick around me. I'm going to go take a shower with the intention of washing away all of the energies that no longer serve me. And while I'm in there, I'm imagining that, just like working out, like I am working out all the areas I'm stuck. And when we link our activity with intention, it's like we allow the divine to meet us and move us. And that's so powerful. And even with
Yeah.
working with the animals, like say we are working with the animals and we pull that, lion, or we want to work with that lion energy, roar, walk around, prance around like a lion, embody the energy of that animal that you're working with, make the noise, like get into it and have fun with it because it allows us to move that energy into our physicality. So we are literally infusing dense matter, our bodies, with the energy of this being and feeling it. Like, what does that do? How do we feel when we embody that? And how does that really empower us? So I love that you said that. But yes, with what it's interesting because what I've realized with my readings, with galactic astrology is a lot of people want to know like, what am I? Like what kind of being am I and where am I from? And they already have an idea. And they're like, I want you to validate this, which, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I'm like, I can just tell you what I think, and if it resonates, great. Most of the time we're spot on, but there's a couple of cases where I'm like, what the information, because I always ask, what is the information when I connect to their Akashic records and into their galactic astrology and their higher self? What is the information that they need to know right now? So it's like, they need to be aware of this, this, this. These are the beings they worked with. So like I said, 99% of the time it is already, supporting their beliefs. And some of the time they're like, well, I thought I was this. And I'm like, I didn't get that and I don't see it in your chart. But if you feel connected to that, then you need to move forward with what, resonates with you. So they just kind of want that general overview. But with galactic astrology, even more so than astrology, I would say there's so much information. And for me, when I started learning and I started going through my own chart, it was like, okay, this is the general galactic astrology. So who am I? What am I? Where did I come from? But then all of these other layers of like, where are my squares? How can I work
Mhm.
on that karma? Where are my oppositions? And then my trines, like what are my gifts? My sextiles, who are those beings that are out there to help me? So like, I mean, I could work with somebody probably on a weekly basis for
Yeah.
a year, digging into all these different aspects and how they're affecting them and how they're shifting them. So there's so much in those charts outside of just like validating who you are and your soul mission and purpose that can really help us start shifting where we have constriction here in this form, our experiences in the past and karma that has affected us that we're bringing in. Like there's
Yeah.
so many layers to it, and that's what I love. That's and then using those different planets, stars, black holes for healing. Like how can we use those energies to get answers, to
Yeah.
heal and to shift our consciousness? Like ultimately I think that that's like the really where that's really where it's at. And so I would love for people to become more curious about that and really like, let's move beyond the validation and let's start
Mhm.
looking at, and that is very important. I mean, I need that validation at times. So there's nothing wrong with wanting
Mhm.
validation. It serves a purpose, but then it's like, let's take the next step.
Yeah.
We heal that wounding. I mean, even we were talking about like Chiron and Lilith and like
Mhm.
other, like, how do we heal those hard aspects? They are there for us to learn. They are there. Like we said, I want all of this because I want to learn these lessons. So it's like, really, how do we get in alignment to learn those lessons?
You know what's funny is I was kind of for a minute I was like it's interesting that we've combined the conversation of like the animals with astrology, but
Yes.
it makes kind of perfect sense to me because right what Jessica is talking about is your natal chart, not that it's stagnant because we're always changing as people, but right what happens is like your natal chart is what you were born with. And then the planets are always moving. The planets are always activating things in your chart. So it goes from like that, let me accept myself and my natal chart energy, my blueprint of like who I came in. And then how are these energies that are being activated? Like, how is this helping me to grow and expand as a person? How is this helping me to embody like really who I am and to have that? It's a tool, really. Like, it helps so much with timing. It helps you to understand the phase that you're in. And then if we pull in that other tool of animal support, we can really be supported by the energy of the earth, right? Because even though the planets are, they're out there, it's like as above, so below. So it's like, how is that planetary energy? How are these archetypes affecting us on this planet? Because they're planets, obviously you're working with galactic, but right, if we're just talking about traditional astrology, it's like, um, and we're still here on this physical, right? So even if you're talking about galactic, it's like, where do I fit into this physical realm that I'm in? How are these energies helping me to understand like who I'm growing into, the things that I'm working on? So, I mean, I had never thought about it this way, but I think it's again, like it's a beautiful way to kind of integrate the two energies of the physical that we're living in. So use pulling in the animal energy, pulling in the galactic energy, pulling in the animal or the energy of the planets. Um, right, because life is happening, things are always kind of being triggered in us. It's like, how can we make it easy for ourselves? How can we simplify things? I think that's something in my, I know I'm not really old, but I always say my old age. how can I even have it written on my calendar, like ease. I want more ease in my life. How can I get more ease? It's yeah, like life can be challenging enough as it is. It's like how can we help ourselves to move through and navigate these different things that we're healing through, right? Because it's ultimately like us healing and becoming the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be.
Yeah, well, and that's where, we were mentioning the different astrology, the eclipse. Bring an animal in. What animal can help me work with this eclipse energy to the fullest and what is best for me right now? Like that's where I feel like we take something that's kind of out there, because it's the stars, and we bring it down into, we can understand the animal energy. We can look it up and say, okay, well, the hyena is around humor. So how can I bring in that humor energy to help me? Well, humor is healing, right? Having
Mhm.
humor, taking things lightly, and it has its light and its shadow aspects. But in general, adding more humor into our lives and how we navigate things, taking it seriously, but not too seriously. Um, so that's where I would say, and pull, pick an animal card, look for an animal, even opening a book for an animal, or, the first animal I see, sometimes I'll think that like the first animal
Mhm.
I see, that's going to be the medicine that I need for today. And that's, it's animal medicine. So looking at your chart and saying, oh goodness, I've got, this coming up right now. You mentioned earlier, like today is Cancer moon, and you were feeling kind of like snuggly, like that feels like cocooning. That feels
Mhm.
like the chrysalis. So even just looking and, pulling that card, looking for that animal inspiration, what is the medicine I need today? What is the medicine I need to work with this difficult aspect? What is the medicine that I need to work with? We have Mercury with Chiron and the North Node. So around how we speak and how we find our equality. What is the medicine that I need to help me work with having my, balancing my voice and my throat chakra? And I've
Mhm.
even seen people's like, there's like, this gets me excited because I love like the creative ways that you use this. Like pull a card for each chakra, pull an animal
Mhm.
card for each chakra and see what animal can help you feel more grounded. What
Yeah.
animal can help you stand in your power? Like all of these things are helping us, healing us, and it brings in specific keynotes that we can use. I mean, all of these, ultimately, we know inside of ourselves, and it's just about trusting that. So, do we need anything external? No. We've got it all inside. But all of these things are here to help remind us of what we already know, to help support us on our journey. We are not alone. Like all of these things are just our connection to the vine, however we choose to connect to that and how
Yeah.
we trust that.
So as we were sharing earlier, like this popped in, I wanted to chat about this because you were talking about like embodying the energy of the animals. So when I was in one of the ayahuasca ceremonies that was in, and it's like it's a very like earthy energy, right? Like you're connecting with the earth and the vibration of Mother Ayahuasca and like plants. And I mean, you get like a lot of visuals around those kinds of things, or I did certainly. So one of my friends that was in ceremony, she said, "Oh, it was so cool. Like I think it was a big cat that she got to like embody the energy of, and she felt herself like as a cat kind of walking through." And I was like, holy shit, like I want to experience, because I feel like such a strong resonance with animals. So I asked Spirit, I was like, hey, I'm down to feel, like whatever animal I need to feel like. So I was working on receiving. So like honoring my self-worth and being able to receive and like not feeling like I had to kind of chase after stuff. So the animal that I got to embody was in the next ceremony because I asked for it. So the universe delivered. um, I got to embody the spider energy. And it was so beautiful because, right, spiders are there and they're like chilling in their web, they're doing their thing and like they're waiting for things to come to them. They're not out there like freaking out, like, oh, when am I going to eat again? They're chilling in their web. And they're like, okay, like I'm doing my thing. I know the next thing is going to come for me. Right. Like, so very much being in that energy of like receptivity and receiving. So you can play around with that in meditation again, you know, Jessica and I both believe that if you ask for something, like the universe is going to help you to experience it. So play around with that. You can also, like, whatever animal you got earlier in our little visualization that we did, go back and play around with that animal some more and see if you can embody that animal without having any expectations, right? When we kind of pull our expectations into it. Because honestly, I would have chosen probably a big cat or something, or an owl, because there's like certain animals that I resonate with, but I really needed to feel and to experience that spider energy. So be open to like what the universe wants to deliver you, because it will be what you need to experience. Yeah, I love working with animals. They're so amazing. They're awesome.
Well, it's interesting. I will tell you, you mentioned spider that has 8 legs and octopus has 8 legs. And I think you said that we're in an 8 year. Is that right?
Mhm.
So there you go. You're all about the eights.
Yeah, crazy eights have been coming up for me. There's eight something else this week that's funny. Yeah. I gotta jot that down because I get to go back and meditate on my octopus and my spider.
And I'm an eight. My life path number is an 8. That's around strength and speaking your truth. You know, that the angel with the lion on that tarot card, the strength card. So interesting themes. But that's where
Hmm.
like that was a synchronicity. Like this is what we're talking about. Like all of these things are like out there in the field, right there for us to see it. And sometimes we don't, but that's why we have friends that help us too. And
Hmm.
it's hard to see your own whatever. Like it's easier to work with somebody to help you see those sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is always why I say book
Hmm.
a session, ask some questions, because those synchronicities are out there and we just have to pick them up. Like the universe is surrounding us in information. Our higher self is just like, dripping information through our dreams, through our experiences. And in order to be available for that, because it's great, we definitely want to ask, we want to have the intention that this is going to help us. And then we have to pay attention. And
Hmm.
that requires us sinking in, stilling ourselves, and actually being available. So don't say, oh, I need to see, I want to see an animal to help me. And then you walk out of the house and you have your phone in front of your face and you get in your
Yeah.
car and you're on a call and it's like, I'm not hearing anything. Like, okay, like what can you allow to fall away so that you can feel more in the flow? And I will
Hmm.
tell you, like, if I feel like I'm not hearing anything, I will go put myself in a situation in nature. Um, and that's kind of one of the fun things I like to do is just get in the car and drive until I
Hmm.
see something. The other day I did that and there was a field of cows and I was like, okay, cow medicine it is.
I
So,
love it.
have fun with it. Seek it out. You don't just have to
Hmm.
wait for it to be dropped in your lap. It can be fun finding it. Or like I took a picture and there's all these caterpillars. So we don't know how that information is going to come to us, but you know, the guides and angels, our higher self is always just like giving us beautiful things to think about.
So I also want to share with y'all, because again, Jessica and I are in Florida. So I have a new house, like, and it's only 4 years old at this point. So this was like when it was really new. It was probably only a year old. Like we have cockroaches, right? Like roaches are a thing in Florida. But in a new house, like you don't really expect it too much, right? I went through this phase where and it's not like they were like running all over the place, but I live like there's water behind my house. And I had roaches in the house, and like I refused to spray because I'm just not a chemical person. So there were these roaches for a couple of weeks, and I was like losing my shit. I was losing my shit, and I was like talking to them. I'm talking to the universe. I'm like, why are you sending me roaches? Like I was losing it. So as soon as I started to like accept the medicine of roaches,
Hmm.
I haven't had a single one since then. I had the same thing with some ants when I first moved in. I'm like, what is happening here, right? Like the house is brand new. I'm not like a dirty person, so it's not like there's, like it's not that. Like it's just the universe will send you these messages sometimes, and you're like, why am I getting ant medicine? Why am I getting cockroach medicine? Like as challenging as some of them can be, I know insects are not my favorite. there's still like so much wisdom and so much beauty that we can draw from them and so much strength. So if it's something that you're getting and you're like, I really don't want this roach, I really don't want this ant or whatever it is, the more that you can lean into acceptance can also be helpful, because they're not always like cute and fluffy bunny rabbits or like, the cute fluffy animals. Like sometimes you are going to get things that you're like, why am I getting this insect that I really don't want?
Yeah. Well, and for me, I acknowledge that I don't always hear what I need to hear. So sometimes I'm like, louder. I need you
Mm.
to tell it to me louder. And then that's when I get things like that. It's like, okay, I got it. I got it. I hear you. Thank you.
You could stop sending them now. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where then it's like, then like for me, I'm like, okay, because I'm always like, like let's dive into this. So I'm like, thank you. I see the roach. I'm going to
Hmm.
go do a journey right now with the roach in my mind. Like, okay, roach, what do you have to tell me? Because I am ready for you to not be here.
Hmm.
And that's why I think
Yes.
the other, like, I actually like go out and look for it because like I don't want to always have that fun in my house. Like I've had birds come in my house before and land. It's like, okay, I hear you. You can go now. Thank you. And like
Yeah.
I'll go outside. It's like I'm here for the messages.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds funny, but like you can communicate with them as well. I mean, I would chat with, like, I would tell the ants, I would tell the cockroaches, like, hey, I don't want to kill you. So we need to figure this out because I don't want you in the house. Like, I mean, it's funny when I first started doing it, I was like, have I completely lost my shit? But I mean, I was in tune enough that I knew like, all right, the universe is sending me this message, the universe is sending me this medicine that I need to like accept it for what it is and stop trying to. And ironically, I got a lot of roach medicine around the time that I was it's a lot about being seen. For me, it was a lot about being seen, right? And not like scurrying under into like dark places and hiding from the world. So it was a lot around and right resiliency, like
okay.
we always say that roaches are going to be here like long after everything else has died. There's going to be alligators and cockroaches everywhere. Yeah. What's an animal or an insect that you've gotten before that you're just like, oh my God, why am I getting this?
Hmm. Yeah, I've had the ants and I've had the roaches before. Like I'm not a big, and my other thing is spider. So that is
Mm.
the wildest thing that's happened. Because like ants, I'm in Florida, so you just kind of got to deal with it. Spider and like hornet. So I was in the midst of this dream arc with the gene keys. Like, so I'm fully immersed in the world of animals. And I was in a session with somebody and this spider, which was big enough for me to see, climbed down the wall and actually like walked past me. And I was like, I hear what you're saying and I need you not to come near me. And I'm doing this like I'm communicating with the spider while I'm in session. And I was just like, and it was the craziest thing because that spider walked down past me. I did my whole session because I had only just started it, walked past me, disappeared. I never saw that spider again. I
Yeah.
couldn't find it. It was gone. And it was so wild. Same thing with hornet. Like I've had a hornet come fly into my car and I'm like, I see you. It's time to go now. And then it gone. So it's like
Mm.
it's really about that being intentional and that communication. I mean, one of communicating with animals and with insects, like we have the ability as human beings to be telepathic. And we are like, we
Yeah.
are telepathic. We are getting information. We are communicating with each other, whether we realize it or not. So it was really interesting and it feels safe to communicate with animals, like talking to the roach, talking to the ants, talking to the spider. And then having that communication, like that spider came down, it did not come. I mean, it was going too, like it made it all the way across the room and it was feet away from me. But it once I was like, I see you and I need you not to come near me, it was like, okay, gone,
Yeah.
disappeared. So our minds are very strong. And that's where I would say, like, there are different ways. I always encourage people to really start tapping into their ability, their extrasensory perception, like your ability to communicate and interact with the world around you. Whenever you
Yeah.
make a request and you see that, you're like, oh, Thank you. Thank you. Gratitude. But also, like, I have the ability to manifest that. I remember I'll tell this other story. And it was all, like I said, the dream arc really shifted a lot for me. I was in a place with my career where I was like, okay, universe, this is the chance. If you want me to ascend in my career, great. And if this doesn't work out, then then I'll choose like working towards some things outside of my career, built kind of starting my own thing, being an entrepreneur. A lunar moth landed on the window of my office that day. The job that I thought I was a shoe in for, great interview, everything I should have, like everything in my career is pushing towards this promotion, and it didn't happen. And I had the hugest peace I've ever experienced in my life because the lunar moth is around transitions and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I am going to fully embrace moving into something else while I'm still working. But that's when I really dove into the galactic astrology and was able to create this whole other thing that I'm super passionate about. So having that, like, I feel so in tune. And like that's where I was like, okay, universe, this is a turning point for me, and I want you to give me guidance. It was so great because right there, right now, I've never seen a lunar moth before or after, and it was there for 3 days. And then it
Oh,
left. Yeah. So it's just so powerful. We can ask and have our, request met. We are powerful beings, and then trying that communication out. Like and see,
yeah,
okay, yeah, I can talk to the ants and the roaches, and I do have that ability to influence my environment. So it
yeah.
makes you realize your power.
I will say that I'm not always, sometimes it takes me a minute, like I can be a little bit, I don't know what it is, we'll call it obtuse. I don't know. Like sometimes the universe has to really, so something that somebody recommended to me a little while ago, is to kind of pay attention, right? Like I think sometimes we'll ask a question, like you said, and then we're not really focusing in on what's coming through for us. We'll ask for assistance or ask for guidance, and we expect it to come through other sources, or we expect it's going to look a certain way. So
Yeah.
keeping track of like what's going on in my life, what animals am I seeing repetitively, like how are they showing up, right? Is it something that, like, owls will show up for me in the middle of the day, which owls aren't typically, right? You don't typically see owls during the day, but I see them all the time, like during the day. So, right, like being curious about what is this animal or what is this creature's like natural state and how is it showing up? Like, is it showing up out of the norm for me? What is it that I'm asking for assistance with? Like, you can kind of, start to put the pieces together, like once you keep track of it. So I think that's another, again, I'm probably, yes, universe, they're probably telling me that I'm missing some some signs or some guidance. Because it's hard. Like we don't always, it's hard to kind of connect the dots sometimes. So I love that, yeah, you're always like, well, I don't want to say always because obviously I haven't known you always, but it seems like now you're at a stage where
Mhm.
you are able to like really tune in and like notice those things. So can you give any tips for people, like things that have helped you with that or helped you to
Yeah. I would say for me, I have been tuned in some ways, but there's also been times where I've been very busy in my life and I haven't. And I have really, I'm it's the intentions. I set so much more intentions. I want things to be flowing. I want things to be ease. Like I want there to be ease, even in the hard situations. And it's been this deep process of surrender. Like, you know, I put it out there, and I know that, so there's like a lot of different things that go in, surrender. So like universe, this situation is a big situation. I feel like it's a pivotal thing. I need to see some, reflection about this. And that's where I got the lunar moth. But I have that conversation. So I will say more now than ever, I am constantly in conversation with the universe. Like there is like I'll be walking through the house talking, or you know, I am in constant conversation. Do I spend hours meditating every day? No, but I am talking to the universe.
mhm.
I am receiving, I am sending, I am looking for signs. And this life became so like heavy and so hard and so difficult. I'm like, I know it doesn't have to be this way. It
Mm.
doesn't have to. It can be easier. And that's where I just said, I want to be filled with grace. I want to have grace bestowed upon me. Like suffering, there is the suffering of human existence, but there's also that grace. And that's where, for me, the animals were that grace.
Yeah.
And I would say, even like looking at a variety of things. So, do you see the animal? Do you see a paw print? Do you see fur? Do you see a feather? Do you hear them? And when I started tapping into all the ways that an animal could show up, there was this hawk that was flying over, and every day I couldn't see him, but I would hear him. He
Hmm.
would be like, you could hear it was a hawk. I'm like, what
Hmm.
is this sound? And when I looked it up, it's like hawks are very fierce and very protective. And I was like that just took me back, like, oh my God, like there is a being in the sky letting me know that I am protected.
Mm.
Like, whoa, like it just gave me chills. And then I actually started seeing them. Like literally I would walk along and there's a hawk here, like sitting there looking at me, and I would talk to it. And then I go a little bit further and there's a hawk there. So it's just like I want my life to be magical. And that was one of my things. Like, I know my life can be magical. I want it to be magical. I am done accepting this reality. Like, I need a
Mhm.
whole nother layer of fairies and unicorns and dragons and magic. And I want it, and I'm going to look for it. And so
Mhm.
then it was like, I didn't move. Like, I still live in my same house and I still live in the same place. And my life is very much the same. But when I walked out, it's like there's always something flowering. It doesn't matter what time of year. There's always something flowering around me. Like my orange blossom, like, and that's the other thing with the senses.
Mm.
Smell, taste, like I am delighted. So that's where I also like allowed myself to be delighted. Like I walked past
Mhm.
the bush and it's like I didn't even realize that my oranges are blossoming, but I could smell it. And it's so then I
Mm.
stopped and I went back and so that's the other thing. Like when it happens, like when you smell it, then stop and go back and enjoy it. When you see it, then stop and enjoy it. When you
Mm.
hear it, then stop and enjoy that. And that's how you're saying, universe, thank you for this gift. I'm
Mm.
going to enjoy it. Like I am going to stop. There is nothing more important than the message that you're sending me right now. And
Yeah.
I'm going to take it in all into my being. And that's where it's like, we can't be ungrateful. Like, okay, thanks. I got to go send a text. Like, no, you just got a gift. What do you do when you get a gift? Look at it, enjoy it, love it. And that's
Mhm.
really where it shifted, because then I'm like looking like, ooh, I want to feel special today. Like
Mhm.
butterfly. No, I'm going to go out there and look at that butterfly. And I'm going to spend time with that gift from the divine. And then
Yeah.
it's like there's a relationship. Like, how would you feel if there was somebody who wanted to do something magical for you every single day? And all you had to do was pay attention.
Yeah.
That's the divine.
Yeah. I love like the other cool thing about sharing experiences with people is like when I see hawk, I always think of focus, but I
Ooh.
love that you said about the protection. So I think that too, right? When like you're going to find how the energies call to you and then also like how they might change over time because that does happen, right? Like the more that we evolve and grow, or just depending on what phase we're in, like different animals will bring us different energies at different points in our lives, or, so it's like being open to, okay, yes, the hawk always meant this for me, but now what is the hawk telling me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really important. It's always about what memory you have, what connection you have with that. Like you can always look it up and see what they have to say. But even that, like when you sit there and you read a couple books, like what is sticking out to you? What is aligning with you that's bringing meaning to you? That's always the most important, is following like your inner guidance around things.
So thank you all for joining us today. We have loved sharing with you about the animals and the astrology that's coming up. And just being able to be in the flow, I feel like is such a beautiful gift, like allowing the divine to speak through us and to provide the guidance that y'all might need at this point in your life. So please, we would love some feedback. Drop in the comments below what resonated with you, like, share, do all of the things, and just keep us in the know about what it is that y'all want to hear more about, what you want to learn more about, because we are here for you and we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Lots of love, everyone. And tell us those animals that have been showing up for you. We'd love to hear your experiences.
Bye.
I can see the stars align, dance around the moon every night. And now my eyes are open wide, and the sky has never looked so bright. And I don't need to see the road to believe